This is step 2. In the previous video, we saw how you understand in detail your factory or your production system or the workplace where you work. What are the various steps? To quickly recap, you would want to break it down into various steps, right? In this case, my production system or my factory where I work is a software development factory. We write software to help businesses. So for me, this is what it breaks it down to. And so now you understand from the previous video how to break your factory or the workplace that you work into smaller steps. Now the step 2 is to manage execution and build your work strategy. So what do we mean by that? So managing execution is you would want to understand clearly how is work progressing. So let's take an example. Recently, we are going through this COVID-19 pandemic, and this could potentially be the pyramid of how you can break down the COVID-19 system. There are, at the bottom of the pyramid, mild cases, so asymptomatic, and then there is symptomatic cases that eventually lead to severe cases, and folks recover and some folks die, right? So the very first step is to know that this system exists in this pyramid. And these are the subparts that we discussed in the last video. In this video, what we want to do is we want to build indicators. What are the measurements that actually say that this is actually a pyramid and it's not an expanding set, which is actually going and expanding from the bottom of the pyramid? It's no longer a pyramid, but maybe an explosive set. So indicators help you with that. It'll tell you that how many such cases exist, how many are showing symptoms, how many are recovering, how many are severe cases, and how many are not. So building these indicators would be the first step in understanding how well the execution of your factory or how well the execution of your work is going on. So to build an execution based strategy, you would want to first understand what are the key indicators, right? You would want to find out what are the qualitative indicators that signify the quality aspect of the work that you do, and quantitative. And you would want both of these indicators. And you would want some steps to be reviewed regularly. Like in your staff meeting, you would want to talk about how many people are getting hired, how much work is actually happening on time, how many issues are reported by our customers. So you need a review strategy for these indicators once they are built. Once you do this for a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months, you will get to know what the issues are in the system. You will know what are the main problems that you should be pursuing. You will know what are your customers. You will know what are the pressures that you are going through from various parties that need you to work. That will be the basis for you to come up with a strategy. The indicators will tell you that the work is going well and this is the capacity, these are the strengths and weaknesses of people. And using those indicators, you can eventually build a strategy which is basically saying, I'm going to be focusing on these two or three things, and my team is going to be helping with focusing on fixing this indicator. So coming back to my example in more detail. So software system, in this case, from the time the source code is written to the time it gets shipped to production to our customers, I could add an indicator that says how many features are being committed, how many lines of code are being committed by my team, who are the people, who are the top contributors, how many issues are happening, right? Because certain features can have issues. So you'd want to have quantitative and qualitative measures. And then you would also want to have some guardrail metrics and qualitative measures in terms of what is the code coverage? Is the quality of my software that I'm shipping good? Or am I just shipping a lot of code with issues? Then you would want to look at the health of your functional tests and failures. And then overall time to complete, like what's the loop like? Is it days, is it weeks, is it months? That'll tell you what are the issues. And you'd want to focus on few indicators. You'd want to review these regularly. The time you step into office, you'd want to look at these indicators for health. both for qualitative and quantitative, right? And some of these indicators, like let's say if there is a sudden drop of commits in the team because of COVID-19, folks are busy, they cannot work, then at least you know, you're the first one to know because you have measurements in place. Or that customers are complaining much more, then you know that there's some issues in the cycle. So building indicators and then building the right indicators to focus on, because you can come up with hundreds of such indicators. So then you would have to find out what are the key ones and focus on the top 3 or 4 ones to come up with your strategy. And when you manage execution with these indicators, you will probably want to set some sort of a goal, right? Like you start somewhere and then you have the end due date based on work effort estimates. And the straight line progress indicator is a good proxy. Typically, work never gets done linearly and in that fashion, like some amount, except for maybe strict manufacturing, where also there are delays and system processes that interact with each other, and backlog and bottlenecks in one system can change others. So typically, having a straight line indicator for the goal is a good proxy to regularly measure actual progress. And at some point, right after the midpoint, you would have to make a key decision. Are we going to be able to make it because we now have increased velocity, folks have been trained up, or are we actually going to miss it? That's the key place at which you would have to either mark your status as yellow or red overall for the work that you're doing as a leader, or you would want to get help, or this is that point. So straight line indicators is a really good way to measure progress and have some sort of a baseline. Sometimes if you are doing multiple such projects and you are trying to forecast also how many customers will come, then a staggered chart indicator is another thing mentioned in this book, which is very interesting. For a given month, like say January, you will forecast I'll have 32 customers this month, 35 next month, and for the next 4 months, this is my forecast. And then the star actually indicates what was the actual number, right? So in February, back in January, you said 35 customers will come, but 36 came. So then based on that, you can change your forecasts. You see there's a bump up here, so you expect more customers. So your overall forecasting gets better over time as we get numbers. And let's say March, 42. So in January, you said 40, February, you said 41, and March, you're saying 42, right? So staggered chart indicator is also a really good one to assess two things. How good is the quality of people making forecasts? And second, what does that variance look like? If you look at in June, February you said 75, but you ended up 65. So there's a big variance. So a lot of things changed between what February forecast was versus actually in June. So that gives you a good idea to adjust, pivot, and also set right expectations for the work and execution that's going on. In all of this, remember that output is not equal to busy work or activity. If you see people engaged in work, doing work, but not really leading to output, then that's a problem. So at some point, you would quickly realize that you would want to simplify your work. There might be steps that are redundant. There are steps that are just taking too much time and not optimized. So output-oriented asks for your team is probably the best way to go. Like, what are they producing, and are they producing in the right level? Are they increasing their cadence? Are they getting to peak performance? So to quickly summarize, and these are some of the homework points for me and that I took out of this chapter and would be helpful. So define your output. Like, what is your output? What are you producing? What is your factory, right? Like in this case, the factory is actually producing code in my case. And then what are the key indicators? We went through this, right? These are the key indicators that I came up with in terms of quantity and quality. Then, once you've come up with those key indicators, you would want to list them down in order of importance. There are also going to be environmental pressures. There might be things that other team members want you to do. And so all of those things need to be factored in terms of your output. And simplify your work, right? There could be at least 30 to 50% improvement just by simplification once you look at the indicators. And that can come if you have this lens that output is not equal to pure activity. Activity doesn't lead to output. But it is, if the right activity is taken, then output's guaranteed. And then if you use these indicators and if you have built it over time, then you will have a archive of indicators. And when things go wrong, you can actually go back and correlate as to what had happened in the past. If there are issues that our customers are reporting, if you maintain this log of what are those issues, when it happened, why did we not catch it in the previous qualitative indicators, then your strategy can be informed. You could say, hey, for the last 3 months, we are not doing a good job in quality product shipping. We'd want to focus this quarter on improving the quality or the time to ship. So your strategy could be completely informed and changed based on the indicators that you see. You'd want to have some sort of redundancy built in when you build your strategy. And you'd want some ways in which you are actually getting various pieces of information from across the team. So how you do that, how you build your indicators, how you break your system down, how you use some of these charts to actually even um, motivate your team to see where they are in the progress line and how do we improve performance. If, for in this case, performance could be improved by doing the right predictions or also catching up, right? So these are good ways to build a good execution strategy and also managing execution for your team. Thanks.